The song It's 40 Miles from Schenectady to Troy was part of the musical revue in gay New York that ran for several months during 1896 at the Casino Theater in New York. The Casino Theater was built in 1882 and operated until 1930. Conceived by composer and theater manager Rudolph Aronson, he had it built several blocks to the north of what was then the theater district on 23rd Street. The Casino Theater during its heyday was famous for putting on light musicals and operettas such as this one in gay New York. The Rialto Theater was built a few blocks north of the casino and opened in 1916. This photo is from 1920. Previously on the site of the Rialto was Oscar Hammerstein's Victoria Theater, which opened in 1899 and was demolished in 1916 prior to the building of the Rialto. There were other Rialto theaters, one in Brooklyn, which also opened in 1916, one in Queens, which opened in 1918, and one in Monticello, New York, which opened in 1921. So in this song, when they sing To the Gay Rialto in New York, what are they talking about? I don't know. Maybe they are only using Rialto in its original meaning of theater district, instead of a specific theater by that name. So, although the Casino Theater was in operation at the time of this song's publication, obviously since that was where it was first performed, there was no actual Rialto Theater in New York at the time, as far as I can tell. The lyricist for It's 40 Miles from Schenectady to Troy was Charles Morton Stewart McClellan, or CMS McClellan, a playwright and composer who wrote under the pseudonym of Hugh Morton. He was born in Maine in 1865, grew up in Boston, and spent much of his later life in England. He died there in 1916. The composer was Gustav Kircher, who was born in the Kingdom of Prussia in 1857 and spent most of his life in the United States. He was also a conductor and a cellist. He died in New York City in 1923. He wrote the music for many Broadway musicals and operettas. The most famous work of Morton and Kircher together was the musical The Belle of New York from 1897. I'm going on the stage, and I'll be another Booth. This must be a reference to the actor Edwin Booth. In the present day, he is probably and unfortunately known, if known at all, as the brother of John Wilkes Booth. However, before his brother John assassinated President Abraham Lincoln, he was already a famous and well-established Shakespearean actor. Although his career was somewhat derailed by his brother John's crime, at least for several months, he did recover from it and went on to continue a very respected and successful career until his death in 1893, 3 years before this song was written. There are still many monuments and memorials in honor of Edwin Booth in New York and Maryland. So we come to the big question. Is it really 40 miles from Schenectady to Troy? No, it's not even close. It's about 15 miles. But I suppose 40 is a more symbolic and iconic number than the number 15. And I think it just sounds better. Why Schenectady and Troy? Well, I think Schenectady is just a great name to be used in a song. It has 4 syllables and it has a good rhythm that fits very well into the dotted 8th, 16th note kind of rhythm. Schenectady, Schenectady, Schenectady to Troy. At the time this song was written, Schenectady was an important manufacturing city, the home of both Edison Machine Works and General Electric. It also had 3 railroad hubs with rails going to Susquehanna, Pennsylvania, Utica, New York, and of course, Troy. And if you were going to go from Schenectady to the theater district in New York, it seems logical to me that you would first go to Troy and from there head south to New York City. And although it isn't really all that far from Schenectady to Troy, it is a good 150 miles from Troy to where the Casino Theater was at the time, in New York. And that's a distance, I think, that no one would hesitate to classify as a darned long walk.